Regular meeting number 58 will now come to order. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Councilmember, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome back Pastor Eddie Parker, the Word Church of God in Christ. Please, right here. Good to see you again, Pastor.
Let us pray. God, we thank you for another day. We do not take it for granted. Actually, millions didn't make it, but we are some of the ones who did. We thank you for life. We ask your favor and your blessings upon our city, upon our mayor, on our council president, on this council that serves our communities. God, we ask in this season that you give us love, joy, and peace. Evil has reared its ugly head in our city, but it will not prosper. And as council balances solutions with day-to-day business, I ask you, God, to do what only you can do. Change the hearts of mine and the minds of men and women everywhere. I know you can do it, because through many dangers, toils, and snares, Columbus has already come. And it's not that we've been lucky, it's been your grace that has brought us safe this far, and your grace will lead us on. So lead us on until we're one of the greatest cities in the nation. Lead us on until we stand together as one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is our prayer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
This week's communications received by the city clerk's office are listed on the agenda. They'll be published in the city bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read in the record?
Not at this time.
Thank you, Clerk. Pastor Parker did mention evil rearing its ugly head in our city at the Ohio State University, and next week we will have a resolution that we'll be presenting recognizing the work of Columbus Police, the Ohio State University Department of Public Safety, as well as other first responders. We want to recognize that on the floor of the council tonight. That did take place, and next week we'll be honoring all of those individuals that participated in saving lives and making our community safer. Any comments about the event that my colleagues would like to mention, or just save till next week? Seeing none, resolutions from members of council. Councilmember Elizabeth Brown. Councilmember Mitch Brown.
Council President, I have two resolutions and one announcement this evening. Would Deputy Chief Jack Reel and his fellow firefighters please come to the podium, sir? Resolution 0264X2016 to recognize the members of Columbus Division of Fire for their contribution to disaster relief during Hurricane Matthew. Hurricane Matthew is one of the longest-lived 4.5 storms in the history of the Atlantic, caused over $6 billion worth of damage. and dumped enough rain to fill the Rose Bowl 163,000 times. Because of the efforts of our first responders, the casualties from this record-setting catastrophe were limited to 43. To recognize the members of the Columbus Division of Fire for their contribution to disaster relief during Hurricane Matthew, whereas Task Force 1 is an urban search and rescue task force affiliated with FEMA that consists of personnel from across Ohio, and whereas Columbus Division of Fire Deputy Chief Jack Reel, firefighter Greg Minion, firefighter Mark Dollison, and firefighter Tim Wyckoff responded to assist flooding victims during Hurricane Matthew. During their time of service, the members of the Task Force 1 were deployed in Lumberton, North Carolina, and completed many successful rescue missions. That is, this council has hereby expressed its appreciation for the outstanding contributions of the members of the Columbus Division of Fire who served in Task Force 1 for their participation in the search and rescue efforts carried out during Hurricane Matthew. And many of my colleagues have any comments, I move for adoption.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
At this time, Mr. Reel, would you like to make a few comments on behalf of yourself and the other members of Task Force 1?
Sure. First off, President Klein, Auditor Dorian, Attorney Pfeiffer, Council members, Safety Chair Brown. I'd like to say thank you. Thank you to you and your past colleagues, Mayor Coleman, Director Brown speaks, and the fire chiefs, starting with Chief Woltz, Pettis, Paxton, and current Chief O'Connor, for supporting our participation in what we believe is a very important part of our federal emergency response system. We've been participating in this since about 1997. The City of Columbus had many members of this team. We've made responses to the World Trade Center, Hurricanes Katrina, Rita, Sandy, and obviously the most recent one, Matthew. We made a big impact there and on the locals, and they really appreciated the fact that we were able to get there and get them out of harm's way. And all of them expressed their gratitude, not only to us, but to our communities that we came from. So for that, I thank you, and I appreciate this resolution on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Any comments from my colleagues? I think it's important that during this holiday season, you heard the council president speak about next week. These circumstances happen every single day. Our firefighters and our police officers and our first responders put their lives on the line to help others all the time. They left immediately once they recognized that there was a problem with Hurricane Matthew, and it's just what they do. But the sacrifice is not only to them, but also to their families for all the hard work they do. So again, on behalf of this council, I want to say thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, Council President, I would like to ask Mr. Mark Hardy, Police Chief Kim Jacobs, Laboratory Manager Jamie St. Clair to please approach the podium. Resolution 0285X2016 to recognize Mark Hardy in honor of his 34 years of distinguished service with the Columbus Division of Police Crime Laboratory. The Columbus Police Crime Laboratory is independently accredited in the field of forensic science testing by the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors and Laboratory Accreditation Board. If I may, oh, I gave the wrong resolution, but I will tell you to the firefighters. The circumstances involving Mr. Mark Hardy, who has been with the fire division, the lab for 34 years. Mark has a history. He started with the Ohio State University, came to the Columbus Division of Police, and moved in with regards to responsibilities for ballistics, became the first firearm supervisor, and subsequently was involved, if you will, in the circumstances surrounding the I-270 shooting. But one of the most important characteristics of Mr. Hardy is that most people would not recognize is that for 34 years, he never took a sick day. never missed a day of work for our city. The work that he has brought and contributed to our city is absolutely spectacular, and I truly wanted to take a moment and recognize those hard and genuine efforts. I will say to all of you, when I worked with Mark during the I-270 shooting, I got a phone call from him late at night informing me of circumstances surrounding it. That's the kind of dedication that Mr. Hardy has. So again, on behalf of the City Council, I wanted to say thank you. So I move for adoption.
Second.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And at this time, Chief, would you like to make a few words, please, with regards to Mr. Hardy?
Certainly, Council President, council members, I appreciate the recognition for Mark. A lot of times when people think of police, they think of an officer showing up with a uniform and a weapon. When they think of a crime being solved, they think of a detective in a suit. And I can't tell you how important it is that we have other members of our division that aren't sworn members that are able to solve crimes and respond to situations in this way that Mark Hardy has for 34 years. He has solved tons of crimes through his work as a forensic scientist. And that aspect of our work is so important. Mark exemplifies exactly what it is that we need from our entire division of police, not just the sworn members, but our civilian colleagues that are very important to really protecting the city in many different ways, ways that a lot of people don't even anticipate is being done, but it's being done behind the scenes, and I truly appreciate Mark's dedication. He has that same dedication that all of our members do, and he has served honorably, and we truly appreciate the fact that you've recognized him today, but the fact that he's done so much for the safety of our community.
Thank you, Chief. Jamie?
Thank you, sir. I'm Jamie St. Clair. I'm the Crime Lab Director. I've been there for I'm serving with Mark for 25 years. Together, we've learned how to use computers. And, I think I finally got the hang of it. I'm not sure about Mark. But he was instrumental in instituting a lot of technology, including NIBIN, which has been instrumental in matching up ballistic evidence between crimes. And he has also been a mentor to a lot of new analysts that we've had in the lab. So I feel very comfortable going forward that his mentorship has helped train a whole new generation of analysts. One other little tidbit about Mark is before we had NIBIN, he was NIBIN. He was
Yes.
able to look at a casing and say, I've seen that gun before, and was able to go back to that case. And I was always amazed that he could do that. So he will truly be, we'll miss that part, the expertise that he brings to the job.
I have to say, Mr. Hardy did not want to come down to council tonight, so I'm not going to embarrass him any further, but Mark, would you like to make a few comments?
Sure. President Klein, council members, I want to thank you for this very unexpected recognition. I had no idea it was coming till about a week ago. When I was hired 34 years ago, I was requested to stay at least 5 years, and I agreed to that. I had no idea whatsoever that I would be here for 34 and a half years. I also had no idea that I would be working with the finest officers in the nation. And the city of Columbus ought to be very proud of the law enforcement agency that it has. And I was very much glad to have the opportunity to work with those people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Before I conclude my comments this evening, Council President, I would like to recognize another outstanding member of our community, Justin Lee. Is he here this evening? Justin, would you please come forward? Justin Lee is an engineering student at The Ohio State University and a resident of Columbus. Justin had an idea to beautify Columbus' south neighborhood directly adjacent to Nationwide Children's Hospital, where, with the help of his family, Justin began to hang colorful banners on the fencing that runs along I-70 and Newberry Street. He has created a vibrant mosaic that has brightened his community. Tonight, I would like to recognize Justin for his dedication and initiative and thank him for being a shining example of community advocacy and service. On behalf of City Council, thank you for being a terrific representative of our community. Are there any comments by my colleagues? Council President Pro Tem?
Thank you, Chairman Brown. I just want to say thank you. When I ride down, I think it's coming off the freeway and driving down, I can't think of the Newberry, and just see those banners, really close to Children's Hospital, and just makes you feel good. So just want to say thank you for the work that you've been doing in our community for such a long time, and just appreciate your service in beautifying our community.
Thank you, appreciate it.
How many banners did you actually put up?
Just this year, we put up approximately 200 in just the nearby vicinity of Children's Hospital.
And what made you decide to do that?
Approximately 7 years ago, I was going through my community and I was seeing, children at the nearby schools going to school, having to fight through weeds and things like that. And I wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to make a difference that would be significant and long-lasting and long-standing. So I just, little by little, I decided to chip away at the foreseeable problems in our community that weren't necessarily addressed immediately, and address them myself, and just in hopes of bringing the community together, making Columbus more of a great city than what it already is. Being born and raised here, I take great pride in the city, so everything that I did and I have done and will continue to do is just to uplift my community and make it a better place to live. And when people ride by, hopefully that they see a light, maybe something greater than themselves that they might want to contribute to, something that makes them, motivated to make their community a better place, no matter where that may be. So that's what motivated me to do that.
Well, as I was riding around in the neighborhood, something I do on occasions, I saw all these banners, and I'm trying to figure out who put these up? Where did this all come from?
Yes,
So we had to do a little bit of investigative research and found out that you were the one. And again, on behalf of the City Council, I want to say thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Klein. I would just like to announce that I will be having a public hearing through the Housing Committee this Thursday, December 7th, to address code changes that we would like to make regarding repeat code offenders. Thank you.
Thank you, President Klein. I would just like to share that the committees I chair will be holding our 2017 proposed budget hearings next week. Department of Public Utilities hearing will be on Tuesday, December 13th at 5:30 p.m. Judiciary and Court Administration will follow that again on Tuesday, December 13th at 7 p.m. And the Department of Technology will hold their hearing on Thursday, December 15th at 6 p.m. We welcome members of the public to attend or provide questions or comments to me. I email mstinziano@columbus.gov. Thank you, President Klein. That's all I have.
Thank you, President Klein. I just have some announcements. The first is this evening I just want to announce the 3 budget-related announcements. On tomorrow, Tuesday the 6th at 4 o'clock, we'll have our hearing on the state of our cities as it relates to the third quarter review. Immediately following that hearing, at approximately 4:30, we will have the briefing by the administration on the mayor's 2017 budget. I also want to mention that this week, also on Tuesday, December the 6th, Public Service and Transportation, and we'll have budget hearings as well as smaller minority business development budget hearing and neighborhood budgets, which is all Councilmember Harden's, and they'll be directly after those hearings tomorrow. So we'll have a late evening here in Council Chambers tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, there'll be a public safety budget hearing on December the on the 7th at 5 p.m. And then next week, there'll be additional hearings, and I will announce those next week. And also this week on Thursday, December the 8th at 4 p.m., I will have my Health, Human Services, and Workforce Development hearings. Thank you.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. Are there any comments by our elected officials? Auditor Dorian? City Attorney Pfeiffer? I don't see anyone here from the municipal court. At this time, I request the following ordinance be removed from the consent action portion of the agenda, and that's in economic development. It's 2915-2016. Are there any other requests by members of council for the removal of consent action items to the regular agenda? Seeing none, may we now have a motion to waive reading of the titles of 30-day legislation by the city clerk? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, clerk. Will you now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Finance Committee ordinances 2936 and 3015-2016. Economic Development Committee ordinances 2983, 3107, 3108, 3114, 3115, 3116, 3117, 3118, 3121-2016. Public Safety Committee ordinances 2363 and 2777-2016. Public Service and Transportation Committee ordinances 2917, 2942, 2949, and 3011-2016. Recreation and Parks Committee ordinance 2867-2016. Housing Committee ordinance 3032-2016. Public Utilities Committee ordinances 2511, 2580, 2694, 2713, 2780, 2798, 2838, 2888, 2896, 2900, 2907, 2931, 2935, 2940, 2944, 2945, 2950, 2953, 2970, 2975, 2987, and 3031-2016. Rules and Reference Committee ordinances 2880, 3019, 3026, 3156, and 2972-2016. Zoning Committee ordinances 872-2016, 2833, 3048, 3069, 3070, 3102, 3112, and 3113-2016.
Thank you, clerk. We do have one speaker for first reading. It's in economic development. I believe the ordinance number is 3108. Walter Reiner. Mr. Reiner. They withdrew.
I've got two speaker slips in. Which one is this?
This is 3108 2016 in economic development. I believe that's a historical preservation piece.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Walter Reiner from South Linden, born in South Linden, and longtime resident of Columbus for many years. I talked to folks from the dispatch and their other company, and we've had some issues here about this, which I mentioned a couple weeks ago. So Ms. Page here is going to meet with me Thursday to try to work out some of this problem with your legislation with regard to historical properties. The dispatch and their subsidiary or related company, Capital something or other, said today to me that they were going to go ahead and go forward with this. They weren't going to table or anything, but they did hope that the city was going to cooperate with them and have some clear-cut standards for their restoration of the former dispatch building. So we're not taking a position either way, but we'd just like to see that this gets cleared up for all future people. We're willing to be the guinea pig, and hopefully we can get this resolved in an amicable manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reiner. Any questions or comments for Mr. Reiner? Thank you, sir. The following ordinances appear on our agenda as consent actions. Will the clerk now read the ordinance numbers of each into the record?
Resolution of Expression 299X-2016, Finance Committee, Ordinance 2673, 2800, 2820, 2937, 2986, 3020, 3046, 3119-2016. Health and Human Services Committee, Ordinances 2754, 2801, 2814, 2855, 2958, 2963, 2992, 3049, and 3076-2016. Economic Development Committee, Ordinances 2916 and 2982-2016. Environment Committee, Ordinance 2732, 2909, and 3079-2016. Education Committee, Ordinance 2781-2016. Administration Committee, Ordinances 2886, 2910, 2965-2016. Public Safety Committee, Ordinances 2394, 2887, 2913-2016. Public Service and Transportation Committee, Ordinances 2587, 2633, 2889, 2890, 2906, 2966, 2967, 2981, 3008, 3028, 3039, 3042, and 3054-2016. Small and Minority Business Development, Ordinances 2918 and 3085-2016. Recreation and Parks Committee, Ordinances 2860, 2865, 2866, and 2868-2016. Housing Committee, Ordinances 2879, 2947, 3001, 3005, 3013, 3016, 3024, 3091, 3093-2016. Technology Committee, Ordinances 2742, 2753, 2813, 2826, 2922, 2927-2016. Public Utilities Committee, Ordinances 2506, 2541, 2639, 2660, 2724, 2756, 2760, 2761, 2764, 2776, 2795, 2817, 2845, and 2989-2016. Judiciary and Court Administration Committee, Ordinances 2979, 2980-2016, and appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A0183 and A0186-2016.
Thank you, Clerk. May I have a motion for approval of these items designated to consent? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll by voice.
Brown? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Harden?
Yes.
Page?
Yes, with the exception of 2732-2016 and 3079-2016, on which I am abstaining.
Stinziano?
Yes, with the exception of 2754-2016, on which I am abstaining.
Tyson?
Yes, with the exception of 3039-2016, on which I am abstaining.
President Klein?
Yes, with the exception of 2958-2016, on which I'm abstaining. Consent action carries with the notable exceptions. We'll now proceed to the second reading of 30-day tabled and emergency legislation. The first committee is the Finance Committee. It's chaired by President Pro Tem Tyson. President Pro Tem, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. I have ordinance number 2399-2016 to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to modify an existing contract with K&S Services, Inc. for the service and maintenance for security systems, to authorize an expenditure of $20,000 from the general fund to waive the competitive bidding provisions requirements of Columbus City Code, Chapter 329, and to declare an emergency. Director Lombardi, will you please share why we are waiving competitive bidding, please?
Sure. Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson, President Klein, members of council. K&S Service provides all the hardware, software, and the technology support and the equipment for security cameras that we have throughout the city in the majority of our buildings. This is to add some additional funds for some upgrades at cameras at 77 North Front, our Short Street facility, as well as the mayor's office reception area. So the waiver of the competitive bid is because they are the only company right now that can service those and upgrade those cameras for us.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Nope. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 3063-2016. It is to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to execute a quitclaim deed generally providing for the transfer of all city's interest in the portion of property described in the attachment hereto, being a portion of Franklin County Tax Parcel 010-211623, located on South 3rd Street on the corner of Rich Street, reserving necessary easements for utilities, signs, or other improvements, and subject to other restrictions of record, to Capital South Community Urban Development Corporation, and to enter into and execute other documents pertinent to such conveyance to the extent applicable to waive the requirements of Chapter 329, the Columbus City Codes relating to the sale of city-owned real property, and to declare an emergency. Director, could you please provide some additional information on this legislation?
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson, President Klein, members of council. The city code calls for the sale of any city-owned property to be done through the finance department. This is about 1.2 acres of land that the city owns that is part of the old City Center Mall area. And we have decided that it is in the best interest of the city, and working not only with my real estate division as well as the real estate attorney in our city attorney's office, we all felt it was in the best interest to go ahead and waive that requirement and to sell that land to the current developer to finish out the redevelopment of the Columbus Commons.
Thank you. And could you please share the amount that we're selling this for?
I believe the amount is $2.4 million, and we'll receive somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million once there's some deductions that we need to make that need to be worked out, but I think the sale price is $2.4 million.
Thank you. And that was really the appraised price. Was that also correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 3078-2016, and this is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into a contract with Enforcement Video LLC, doing business as WatchGuard Video, for the Division of Police for the option to purchase body-worn cameras and associated accessories, software, maintenance, and support, to waive the applicable competitive bidding provision requirement of City Code Chapter 329, and to authorize the expenditure of $1 to establish the contract from the general fund and to declare an emergency. Director, could you please share some background on this legislation?
Sure. Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson, President Klein, members of council. First, I'd like to speak to the reason of the waiver. Typically, in these type of purchases, we would do what we call an invitation to bid, where the items are being evaluated on price only. With such a important purchase, we decided to do a request for proposal, or an RFP. The code does not allow for that process currently. We do use that from time to time on other items that we feel this is the best process to take. The reason why it is it allows us to not only evaluate the price, but to evaluate experience, to have the opportunity to see different technologies, to evaluate a variety of criteria, not only just price. So that is the reason for the waiver, is because we used a different process than a typical process for this type of item.
Thank you, Director. And certainly there'll be another piece of legislation in the safety committee this evening that will coincide with this piece of legislation. And so with that, I would move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. I would now like to move to Health and Human Services. Thank you. I have ordinance 2695-2016. It's to authorize and direct the Board of Health to accept a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for the Healthy Start Grant Program in the amount of $1,080,000, to authorize the appropriation of $1,080,000 from the unappropriated balance of the Health Department's Grants Fund, and to declare an emergency. The Healthy Start program is funded to serve 80 clients, of which 40 are pregnant and 4 400 are pregnant, and 400 are parenting women and their infants up to the age of 2 years old who will reside in Franklin County. I move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. And the final ordinance that I have in my committee is ordinance no, it's not the final, but second to the final, is 2911-2016 to authorize and direct the Board of Health to enter into a contract with Comp Drug Incorporated, the Youth to Youth program, for youth tobacco prevention and cessation deliverables, to authorize the expenditure of $60,000 from the Health Department's grants fund, and to declare an emergency. Tobacco use is a contributing factor in 4 out of 5 leading causes of death in Linden, the South Side, the West Side, and more specifically, cancer is a leading cause of death in Linden and the West Side priority communities, while heart disease is a leading cause of death in the South Side communities. And so this legislation is really important because Comp Drug will works with our young people and will form youth stand groups for counter-marketing campaign and advocate for smoke-free schools and educate our youth on the harmful effects of tobacco and nicotine use. I would move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. And the last ordinance that I have is ordinance number 2914-2016 to authorize and direct the Board of Health to enter into various contracts for the Healthy Start Grant Program, to authorize the expenditure of $353,750 from the Health Department Grants Fund, and to waive the provisions of the Columbus City Codes for competitive bidding, and to declare an emergency. And we're declaring, again, the competitive bidding process to waive that because we've already have a grant application process that these organizations have gone through to get these dollars. Mount Carmel would get $130,000. The Decision Support Services, $41,750. Ohio Health, $130,000. Moms to Be, $15,000. The Challenger Soft, $22,500, and Mental Health of America and Action for Children, $175,000, and Action for Children, $7,000. Mount Carmel will be enrolling 200 pregnant clients, and Ohio Health will enroll 200 pregnant clients. I move for passage. Oh, okay. I will call voice vote.
Ms. Brown?
Call the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Brown? Hardin? Page? Stinziano?
Yes.
Tyson?
Yes.
President Klein.
Ordinance passed. Move for passage.
It's passed.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's
thank
all I
you,
have, my
President
committees.
Pro
Thank
Tem
you.
Tyson. The next committee is Economic Development. It's chaired by Councilmember Elizabeth Brown. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. Tonight in Economic Development, we have Ordinance 2912-2016 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a job creation tax credit agreement of 55% for a period of 5 years with DSW Incorporated, DSW Shoe Warehouse Incorporated, DSW Information Technology LLC, DSW Leased Business Division LLC, Brand Card Services LLC, and E-Tail Direct LLC, in consideration of the company's proposed investment of $3.6 million and the creation of 100 new full-time permanent positions. As many of you are aware, DSW Incorporated is an international company, 481 stores, one of the fastest growing retailers in the U.S. Their first store was in Dublin. Their headquarters, distribution, and fulfillment operations are all here, located in Columbus. This deal represents 840 retained jobs. As I said, 100 new jobs. The average salary of the new positions is $83,200 annual. And I want to thank the Department of Development for the excellent retention and expansion deal they've brought here tonight. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Stinziano.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Director. Really quickly, how do you arrive at the 55% over 5 years? How does that become the number for this deal or other deals? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Stinziano. Chairman Brown, President Klein, members of council. It's a negotiation. It's a negotiating process with the businesses that we work with. One thing I will say is you'll find if you compare this to when we do something with, say, the jobs growth incentive, we do different rates for the tax credit, which is a non-refundable tax credit, so we have less liability on that than we do with the jobs growth incentive, which is based off of tax revenues, but is nonetheless a grant of non-tax revenue city dollars. So we're a little careful about that. We typically look at precedent, and then we negotiate with the business.
Great. Any other questions from my colleagues? Okay, I move for a voice vote.
Clerk, call the roll by voice.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Hardin? Page? Stinziano? Tyson?
Yes.
President Klein?
Ordinance passed. Thank you.
Great. Next, as I'm reading this ordinance, I'd like to invite up Rosemary Lisco with the Northwest Civic Association and John Murley with Far Northwest Coalition. You are both here. If you could approach the podium. We have ordinance 2941-2016 to adopt the Northwest Plan as a guide for development, redevelopment, and planning of future public improvements. The Northwest Plan of 2016 replaces several existing documents, including the 2007 Northwest Plan, the Bethel Road Development Standards from 1980, and the Sawmill Road Development Standards from 1977. The Far Northwest Coalition and the Northwest Civic Association voted to recommend adoption of the plan this summer, and the Columbus Development Commission reviewed the plan on October 13th, 2016, and unanimously voted to recommend its adoption to City Council. Thank you to both of you for your hard work and review and for coming here tonight. I'd love to just hear some short comments on the plan and what's going on in the Northwest area and what this will mean for you.
Well, what this means for us is a better plan. It's still just a guiding document, and we would like to ask all of you to try to adhere to it as much as possible. The community had one major concern about the plan. It doesn't include anything about infrastructure or parks and recs, and that is so important in our area because we are growing and developing. Most of it's infill, but what can I say? High density infill. But this plan is better than the one we had or the previous plans. I've worked on 4 of them now. Just to show you how old I am. Don't try to figure it out. But the planners, Mark, Jackie, Chris, and Kevin they put up with us. Seriously, we demanded a lot, and they worked with us, and we got the plan we wanted, so thank you so much.
President Klein, council members, John Murley from the Far Northwest Coalition, and it was an enjoyable experience working with Jackie and the rest of the staff to put all of this together. We're looking forward to having it as a useful tool to kind of guide our process going forward. And we do think it's definitely an improvement from the last time around, and we look forward to keeping it up in the future. And again, we look for your support and helping to adhere to the policies that are stated within there. So, thanks.
Thank you both so much for, do you want to, just 1 second in case any members have, council members have questions or comments. I do appreciate the reminder from you both that this is a living document, if you will, and it's all about how it's implemented and referred to. Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments? Okay, you may sit down. Sorry about that. Well, hearing no further questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Great, thank you. Next in Economic Development Committee, we have Ordinance 3068-2016 to amend Ordinance 1803-2016, passed on July 18th, 2016, to add Big Lots Stores Incorporated, Big Lots F&S Incorporated, and Big Lots E-Commerce LLC to the agreement and extend the signature deadline of the approved Job Creation Tax Credit Agreement and to declare an emergency. I just want to highlight for my colleagues that this legislation does not change any terms of the original retention and expansion deal. It is solely to add those affiliates who are also responsible for the investment and job commitments of the original document. Are there any questions? I move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. And last in economic development, if you go back to page 14 of your agenda, in consent, which we removed from consent, we have Ordinance 2915-2016 to accept the application of McCorkle Soaring Eagles LLC for the annexation of certain territory containing 55 approximate acres in Blendon Township. I would like to request to table this indefinitely.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, President Klein. That's all I have in economic development. I have one piece in administration. May I move to that? In administration, we have Ordinance 3066-2016 to authorize the city auditor to reduce current encumbrances by $2,400,000 and appropriate $2,600,000 from within the unappropriated balance of the Employee Benefits Fund, to authorize the city auditor to transfer $2,400,000 in appropriation between subfunds in the Employee Benefits Fund, to authorize the Director of Human Resources to modify the existing contract with United Healthcare, to authorize the expenditure of $5 million from the Employee Benefits Fund, or so much thereof as may be necessary, to pay the costs of medical insurance claims and to declare an emergency. This piece of legislation represents some higher claims than we had anticipated when budgeting for that portion of medical this year, and this authorizes the payment of those. Any questions from my colleagues? I move for passage.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
That's all I have in my committees.
The next committee is Public Safety, chaired by Councilmember Mitch Brown. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight in Public Safety Committee, we have at least one piece of legislation, but first, I have a series of resolutions pertaining to liquor objections. My office is working with City Attorney Pfeiffer and Assistant City Attorney Bill Sperlaza. I would like Mr. Sperlaza to provide background into the process and provide context for each objection we're presenting this evening, answering questions as they come up, and once that's been complete, we will go through the legislation without any interruption. First, however, I'd like to offer the opportunity for City Attorney Pfeiffer if he wishes to make any comments.
Chairman Brown, President Klein, members of council, thank you very much. Annually, the City of Columbus has the opportunity to object to the renewal of liquor permit holders if we believe that those permit holders have not acted according to the law. We don't do this to go after or harass people. We do this to make sure that people run a good business and follow the law. The process basically works by us first listening carefully to what the community has to say. Sometimes members of the community will get upset with us if we don't file an objection. But as the chief legal official for the City of Columbus, if this council moves to object to a particular permit, I'm then required to send a letter that says, as the chief legal officer, it's my opinion that there are sound legal reasons to object to this permit hold. Now, Mr. Sperlaza has worked very hard at this, and he works in cooperation with the Division of Police, and he will present why we believe that certain liquor permits renewals should be objected to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Attorney. Mr. Sperlaza, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Council President Klein, Chair Brown, members of council, Mr. Pfeiffer, ladies and gentlemen in attendance today. Thank you for this opportunity to address Columbus City Council. As you've heard, my name is Bill Sperlaza. I'm a Senior Assistant City Attorney in Columbus City Attorney Richard C. Pfeiffer Jr.'s office. A brief outline before I begin of the process that we have in choosing which liquor permits we present to council. Throughout the year, various city and state entities meet on a regular basis to discuss problem establishments in Columbus. These entities include, but are not limited to, the Columbus Police Department, the Columbus City Attorney's Office, the Columbus Division of Fire, licensing, code, building, health. We also have friends from the state, the Ohio Investigative Unit, and the Franklin County Sheriff's Office as well, in addition to representatives from the WIC Nutrition Assistance Program. These meetings take place via the city's liquor nuisance abatement group and also via renewal objection-specific meetings. Facts are shared, investigations and inspections are conducted often between cooperating entities, and evidence is gathered. We also receive and investigate complaints from civic associations, area commissions, civic groups, block watches, churches, schools, and individual citizens. The concerns of the community are always of the utmost importance to our evaluation. The types of criminal activity we consider are violence, liquor law violations, drug activity, criminal activity, food stamp fraud, stolen property violations, gambling, and tobacco violations, just to name a few. We considered nearly 100 liquor establishments in 2016, and today I will present to this council 9 new establishments that we have found to be some of the worst offenders in Columbus. I would mention that since 2011, the 67 objections that we have had here with the City Council, over 81% of those objections have resulted in that permit not being renewed. So we have a pretty good record going here in the last few years. Some quick thank yous before I get started. Briefly, I'd like to thank the Columbus Police Department's Vice Section, specifically Lieutenant Ron Kemmerling, Sergeant Scott Soha, Detective Alan Brown, Detective Steve Rosser, Detective Liz Biney, and all those at the Columbus Police Department who put themselves in harm's way and help us investigate these problem establishments. I know that the city can be very proud of its Vice Section. I would also briefly like to thank Detective Alan Brown. When I started this process, this is our 6th year together choosing these objections. And Detective Alan Brown is about to retire, so it'll be our last year together. And he has been an asset to me, to the city, and has taught me a lot about this process. So I'd like to thank him as our last go-around together. I'd also like to thank Councilmember Brown and his staff, particularly Grant Ames and Denise Friend Foster, for their tireless effort this week in bringing these councils to resolution, or these objections to resolutions. Thank you very much. I appreciate your help. Now we'll move on to the specific resolutions, and I will very briefly touch on some of the highlights pertaining to each premises. The first would be Resolution 0287X-2016, Cheap Shots Bar at 3770 West Broad. We've had 2 shootings at this particular establishment, in addition to 8 liquor law violations this year. We have a very high calls for service ratio of 38 calls for service. A call for service is anytime a call is made pertaining to an address and a police department official or fire department official has sent to respond. We have found that around 30 calls for service in 1 year's time is an indicator of a problem establishment. We also have patrol officers who have many run-ins with this particular establishment and have requested that we consider it for objection. Violations at this property continue to occur, even though the Columbus Police Department has on multiple occasions communicated with the management and their need to change things up. The second will be Resolution 0288X, that is Eagle Supermarket at 1464 Cleveland Avenue. Nearly 200 calls for service in 2015 and 2016. These calls for service take away valuable resources from the community when it requires police officers to spend so much time at this property rather than patrolling other neighborhoods. Drug activity in this property is rampant, at least 5 occasions in 2016, at least 5 other occasions in 2013, 14, and 15, and we have been able to observe some of these violations via poll cameras. We have evidence of workers aiding drug dealers and avoiding law enforcement. We also have tobacco violations, gambling violations, and liquor violations. Most notably, there has been a recent nuisance abatement filed by my friend and colleague Katerina Carrick with the City Attorney's Office. A judge has issued an emergency order to board the property up. And it is of particular interest to me as I drive from the courthouse up Cleveland Avenue to Lyndon McKinley High School to coach basketball every evening, and I see this store and I see the problems that it presents, and I'm happy and thankful to my colleague that we've been able to get an abatement, and we'll further pursue them via a liquor permit objection. Next is 0289X. That is the GFS Food Mart at 2207 Parkwood. Very simply, this property has 21 food stamp violations in the last 3 years. When we talk about food stamp fraud or food stamp violations, we are talking about a liquor permit premises that is selling beer, that is selling alcohol, that is trading cash at 50 cents on the dollar in exchange for food stamp proceeds. These are of particular concern to me and offensive to me, and that those food stamp monies are meant to be helping folks in need to get food, and these folks are allowing an avenue to turn them into cash, alcohol, and tobacco. Again, 21 such violations in the last 3 years. 10 of those violations include the trading of alcohol or tobacco for food stamps. And it is important to note in this premises that the permit holder himself has been involved in every buy and has been indicted on felony charges. Next will be 0290X. That is Lounge 13 at 1320 Beechwood. This premises has multiple acts of violence, including guns, robberies, fights, and police-involved shootings. The Columbus Police Department reports that drug use occurs in the open on a regular basis at Lounge 13. The Lounge 13 has also had multiple liquor violations in the last 2 years, 63 calls for service in 2016, again, usurping valuable resources from the surrounding community. Also a high amount of calls for service in 2015 as well. The next resolution will be 0291X, Natalia's Carryout at 1293 Summit Street. 5 liquor law violations in 2015 and 2016. It's important to note that all 5 of these violations were committed by the permit holder himself. The holder also has a history of domestic violence, assault, drugs, alcohol, and tobacco violations. This is an individual who, again, has been warned both by the police department and by the court system of the liquor violations, yet continues to violate liquor law and has shown no regard for the law in that, as it pertains to liquor. In addition, our friends in the Wyland Park Civic Association and the University Area Commission have reported this carryout as a problem carryout in the community, and this is a good example of our friends in the community making us aware of a problem establishment, law enforcement investigating that problem establishment, and finding evidence that bears out the complaints. Next will be 0292X. This is Nios at 2871 Olentangy River Road. Quite simply, between July 2015 and June 2016, law enforcement has uncovered evidence of approximately 45 underage individuals in possession of alcohol at this particular establishment. The club services campus area and allows individuals under the age of 21 to enter. When you do so, you have a responsibility to keep alcohol out of the hands of those under 21 years old. Law enforcement has evidence that employees, upon observing law enforcement enter the premises, scramble to inform underage individuals of law enforcement's presence and take away their alcohol. They are actively breaking the law and trying to hide it. Again, over 45 instances in less than a year's time of underage individuals consuming and possessing alcohol. We also have evidence of drug use in the premises as well. Our next resolution, 0293X, pertains to Stooges at 2932 No Bixby Road. 7 liquor law violations in 2016. This is another establishment where the police department has gone into the establishment and warned management of the violations. However, the violations continue to persist. Approximately 100 calls for service in 2015 and 2016, again, taking away valuable resources from the surrounding neighborhoods. And again, another property where we have our friends in the Greater Southeast Area Commission who have lodged a complaint about this particular establishment. Again, another example of our friends in the community guiding our investigative resources to the right places. Our next resolution is 0294X. That is the Sunoco Station at 2825 Olentangy River Road. We have a permit holder who owns this particular Sunoco as well as a Sunoco on East Main Street in Whitehall. Between the two establishments, we have 22 incidents of receiving stolen property and or food stamp fraud. When we have investigations for receiving stolen property, those typically involve law enforcement bringing in goods purported to be stolen, such as Similac or alcohol or soda, and the permit holder purchasing this stolen property for a fraction of the cost, turning around and putting it on their own shelves. Again, we have 22 such instances by this gentleman between October of 2015 and July of 2016. It's important to note that evidence at all of a permit holder's permit locations can be used to determine his credibility to own any one single permit. So the activity both on the Olentangy River Road property and the East Main Street in Whitehall is relevant. Our office is also in contact with the Whitehall City Attorney's Office, and we hope for a collaborative effort with the City of Whitehall objecting to this gentleman's East Main Street location as well. Our final new objection is Resolution 0295X. That is the United Foodlands at 2218 Summit Street. Similar to our last individual, we have 9 incidents of receiving stolen property between April and October of 2016. We have 4 liquor law violations in addition, just in 2016 alone, and it is important to note that all of these violations were committed by the permit holder, and this particular permit holder is very, very likely to be indicted for felony charges very, very soon. That concludes the new objections. We do have 3 additional ones that I will do at the same time. This is 0296X, 0297X, and 0305X 2016. They are Two Shots Bar at 1571 Lockbourne Road, My Friend's Bar at 6445 North Hamilton Road, and Doug's Lounge at 2440 South High. Very simply, these are permit premises that this council objected to about this time last year. The Division of Liquor Control, unfortunately, has yet to rule on those, so as a matter of course, we need to refresh our objection by re-objecting here today. That is all I have. Thank you, everybody, and I am certainly willing to ask any questions or answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions from my colleagues? At this time, I will read all the resolutions and then ask for adoption as we proceed. Resolution 0287X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 883-163-60005 held by TLF Inc. doing business as Cheap Shots, located at 3770 West Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio 43228, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0288X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 5378631 held by MAQ Inc. doing business as Eagle Supermarket, located at 1464 Cleveland Avenue, Columbus, Ohio 43211, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions by my colleagues, I move for adoption.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution number 0289X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 3088958 held by Merhawi Y. Gelbrett, Inc., doing business as GFS Market, located at 2207 Parkwood Avenue, first floor, Columbus, Ohio 43211, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions from my colleagues, I move for adoption.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0290X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 2932181 held by Friends of Beechwood doing business as Lounge 13, located at 1320 Beechwood Road, Columbus, Ohio 43227, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0291X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 8913099 held by TRHES Inc., doing business as Natalia's Carryout, located at 1293 Summit Street, Columbus, Ohio 43201, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0292X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 6483685 held by Nios Columbus Inc., doing business as Nios Buckeye Bar and Grill, located at 2871 Olentangy River Road, Columbus, Ohio 43202, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0293X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 8601743 held by Stooges Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Stooges, located at 2932 No Bixby Road, Columbus, Ohio, 43232, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0294X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 0151200 held by AM Sunoco, Inc., doing business as Sunoco, located at 2825 Olentangy River Road, Columbus, Ohio, 43202, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0295X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 6548700 held by One Ola Inc., doing business as United Foodland, located at 2218 Summit Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43201, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0296X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 9115530 held by Two Shots, Inc., doing business as Two Shots, located at 1571 Lockbourne Road, Columbus, Ohio, 43207, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0297X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 2355220 held by Denning and Stinstra LLC, doing business as My Friend's Bar, located at 6445 North Hamilton Road, Columbus, Ohio, 43081, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Resolution 0305X2016 to object to the renewal of liquor permit number 2285919 held by Doug's Lounge, Inc., doing business as Doug's Highway 23, located at 2440 South High Street, Columbus, Ohio, 43207, and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions, I move for adoption.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. I would like to thank the citizens of our great city for helping to identify these problem establishments, and the city attorney's office, specifically Mr. Sperlaza, and the Division of Police, Vice Unit under the leadership of Lieutenant Kimberly. Detective Alan Brown, no relation, however, he is a Steelers fan, for the hard and detailed work in compiling the necessary to file the objections. I do have one more piece of legislation, Council President.
Let you get to that in a second. I believe that City Attorney, you don't have the bird's eye view that I see, but City Attorney Pfeiffer would like to make a comment.
I have him behind me for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Distinguished Chair Brown and President Klein and members of council, I just want to point out that while each of us does our job in this process, you tonight ask the state to not renew these liquor permit holders' permits. That's not going to happen overnight. And I'd like Mr. Attorney Sperlaza to explain how we have, as you note tonight, we've asked you to re-object to 3 permits that you objected to last year, and they haven't been heard yet by the state. But I'd like Mr. Sperlaza to also explain, while we have been successful at one administrative level, these permit folks are still operating. And I'd like Bill to explain why, and I used the term, he worked the ref the other day a little bit, trying to get folks' attention. Could you please explain so that council members, when they get complaints from citizens that they're not doing anything, in fact, they are? So would you please let folks know what that is?
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. I'd be happy to. Once the division has a hearing, and the division will take some time, typically 1, 2, or 3 months. In this case, certainly in the case of Doug's Lounge, over 4 months before they make a ruling. During the pendency of these objections, the premises are able to operate, which is unfortunate that it takes so long to get a ruling. But once we get a ruling, then the permit holder, as is their right, and it should be, has the opportunity to appeal that ruling. During the pendency of that appeal, they have an opportunity to request a stay, which would allow them to continue operating, despite the fact that there has already been a hearing at the division level where the permit holder is present, where the permit holder often brings legal counsel and is allowed to have evidence admitted, and they are allowed to continue. Unfortunately, the Liquor Control Commission, who is the entity that the initial appeal goes to, quite often, in fact, so far this year as it pertains to the City of Columbus, 100% of the time grants these requests for stay. So what you have is a situation where in December of 2015, we've objected to multiple permit premises. We've had our hearings. We have admitted evidence of violence, liquor law violations, other legal violations. And because of the length of time it takes to get a ruling, because of the opportunity for the stay, and because the Liquor Control Commission seems to, across the board, grant the stays despite any of the evidence that has been submitted, these folks continue to operate today, 1 year since we have objected to them, and will continue to operate months into 2017 until the appeal is finalized. It is frustrating, but I can assure this council and everybody in the City of Columbus that the City Attorney's Office is doing everything we can to make sure that the Division and the Liquor Control Commission has all of the evidence in front of them before they make these crucial decisions that affect our communities and our business districts.
And Mr. President, to add on, while we represent you at the commission, at the hearing level, we don't represent you at the commission level. That's the Attorney General's office, because it's representing a state agency that made a ruling. You also point out that even if we win at the commission level, they still have a right, 2506, to go to common pleas court. So this can be a very lengthy process. So again, knowing in your position as council members being in the community, when you hear from folks about certain problems with permits and why haven't you done something, please get a hold of Mr. Spalazza, because he'll tell them, you folks did your job. So thanks very much.
Thank you, City Attorney. The ordinance number 3124-2016 to amend the 2016 capital improvement to authorize the appropriation and transfer of funds within the General Permanent Improvement Fund, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to associate all general budget reservations resulting from this ordinance with the appropriate universal term contract purchase agreement for the purchase of body-worn cameras and accessories and the video management system for the Division of Police, to authorize the expenditure of $500,000 from the General Permanent Improvement Fund, and to declare an emergency. At this time, the Assistant Director speaks. Would you like to speak to this issue, please?
Thank you, President Klein, Safety Chair Brown. First, let me say that under the leadership of Mayor Ginther and the leadership of City Council, these ordinances tonight, the two ordinances, are significant steps to implement our technology, a technology that's been shown to improve police-community relations, a technology that's been shown to increase transparency and accountability, and a technology that has been shown to be a tremendous aid in the prosecution of crime. The first ordinance tonight that Director Lombardi presented simply establishes a contract with WatchGuard, one of the foremost body camera vendors in the country. The ordinance before you now sets up $500,000 or $500,000 from which we can begin our implementation with WatchGuard. Let me briefly outline the steps we've taken to date to bring our body camera initiative to fruition. First, a body camera committee representing diverse community perspectives was formed. This committee promulgated a best practice policy tailored to our city. The committee also made recommendations to amend the Ohio Revised Code, and we've been meeting with state legislators and interested stakeholders to hopefully enact those recommendations early next year. Second, we successfully negotiated the implementation of body cameras with the Fraternal Order of Police and have a memorandum of understanding. Third, a procurement committee led by the Finance Department has done a tremendous job in promulgating an RFP, setting up subcommittees in both technology and in police, wherein we tested the products of various vendors who wanted to sell us their body camera. And finally, the RFP committee under Finance selected WatchGuard by passage of the earlier ordinance tonight. On behalf of the Division of Police, I would like to thank Director Lombardi and his outstanding crew in Finance, and especially the procurement section led by Sean Fouts for all their hard work. Likewise, I want to thank Director Sam Orth in the Department of Technology for all the work they've put into this project thus far, and the many, many more hours that are forthcoming. Hours to do such things as configure the cameras and the software, to set up our servers, to install our docking stations, to obtain our software license and to help train both our officers and our public information unit. And one of the most significant items is to help set up our communication infrastructure at all of our police substations, which should be completed by the end of the second quarter next year. Now, that's a brief summary of where we've been. Let me briefly outline you where we're going. In the short term, our goal is to get the software installed and configured. We'll be conducting training within our traffic bureau of about a dozen officers, and we plan to have these cameras on the street by year's end. In the remainder of January, we should be completed in our traffic unit. That's a short term. In the intermediate term, we will have our software and technology honed and synchronized with our cameras and servers, and we'll get our fiber optics installed again by about the second quarter of next year. Once all this communication infrastructure is put in place, we'll be able to massively train and deploy. And in the end, we will equip all our first responders, which numbers approximately 1,432 out of 1,900 officers, with this incredible technology. In closing, I cannot thank Mayor Ginther, President Klein, Safety Chair Brown, Finance Chair Tyson, and all of City Council for your leadership and for the resources, $500,000 of which is before you in this ordinance. So thank you now and into the future. And we are looking at a total implementation, so I'll be back here again, total implementation cost of approximately $9 million. So thank you.
Are there any questions from my colleagues?
Yes. Thank you, Chair, and certainly want to recognize leadership that you've brought and the experience and wisdom in the public safety realm to Council as we consider this legislation this evening, and to Deputy Director Speaks and the work that you've done. It's been a lot of hours, a lot of research, and I know that you ran quarterback from the Department of Public Safety in getting that done, and it should be recognized publicly in the work that you have committed to this council and to the city in the implementation of body cameras. I'd also like to recognize and thank the members of the Body Camera Committee, which were comprised of citizens, as you indicated. It's no easy task to devote time away from your family, but doing that in the process of formulating the right policy that fits for the City of Columbus is so important. So having the wisdom of our citizens, our fellow residents of the City of Columbus come together and figure out what the best policy is to work with the fine division of police that we have in our city, I think is tantamount to a successful implementation. It's been no secret that I've been a champion of this particular technology because I think it's important for police officers and the community. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. And I'm hopeful that this technology will continue to build upon the accountability, transparency for police and the community. And I'm grateful that we're getting going on this, and just would close with imploring the state legislature to do their part in amending Ohio's public record law so that we can optimize the use of this technology in the City of Columbus. So if our friends in the General Assembly are listening, which I'm sure they are not because they're busy in the lame duck session, I hope that they can really look forward to partnering with cities and with you, Director Speaks, to figure out how we can change Ohio's public record laws and maximize the use of this technology and take the very difficult discretion that could be placed in our officers' hands by turning on and off cameras, and our officers have enough to worry about. They shouldn't have to worry about that, but until we get a change in the General Assembly, they'll have to. So thank you, Deputy Director Speaks, and to Chairman Brown for this legislation.
Any other comments by any other colleagues? President Pro Tem?
Thank you, Chairman Brown. And so I know that President Klein, Mayor Ginther, and certainly have been championing this, and it certainly has a community. So I really want to thank the community for giving us the input, and that this is certainly President Obama, as he had worked with police chiefs, and I know that our police chief was involved in this, and thinking about the 21st century policing and the role that body cameras play in 21st century policing. So I'm very excited that Columbus will now have our body cameras, and again, for the safety of our residents, but also for the safety of our police officers. So congratulations to Deputy Director Speaks, to Director Lombardi, and to everyone who has participated in this process.
Thank you, President Pro Tem and President Klein. I think it's important for all members of the community today to understand the time it took in order for us to move to this particular spot. You heard from Assistant Director Speaks. The philosophy is a very, very clear one. Measure twice, cut once. Other communities have gone forward and bought cameras but did not think it through. And consequently, they've had all kinds of other issues. We don't do things that way in the city of Columbus. And to the police division, my hat's off, and to public safety, thank you very, very much. I move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
That's all I have, Council President.
Thank you, Chair. The next committee is Public Service and Transportation, chaired by Councilmember Harden. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. This evening in Public Service and Transportation, we have Ordinance 0166X-2016 to declare the city's necessity and intent to appropriate and accept certain additional or modified fee, simple title, and lesser real estate in order to complete the Hayden Run Boulevard Phase 2 roadway public improvement project. This expresses the city's intent to acquire the right-of-way around the Hayden Run Boulevard on the northwest side of Columbus. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
I'm going to go down to and read Ordinance 3009-2016 to authorize the City Attorney's Office Real Estate Division to contract for professional services relative to the acquisition of fee, simple title, and lesser interest in and to property needed for the intersection improvements Main Street at McNaughton Road project, to appropriate funds within the Federal State Highway Engineering Fund, to authorize the City Attorney's Office Real Estate Division to negotiate with property owners to acquire the additional right-of-way necessary to complete this project, and to authorize expenditure of up to $500,000 from the Streets and Highways Bonds Fund and the Federal State Highway Engineering Fund, and to declare an emergency. This is for the road improvements at the intersection of Main Street and McNaughton on the far east side. We are expanding the road to add an eastbound turn lane on Main Street, reconstructing the existing traffic signal, and reconstructing sidewalk on both sides of the street. $244,800 is coming from the Ohio Department of Transportation Safety Funds grant program. The remaining costs will come from the public service capital budget. So the city is only paying for half this project while making this intersection on the far east side safer. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Lastly, I have Ordinance 2824-2016 to authorize the city auditor to appropriate $1,491,250 within the Smart City Grant Fund for the estimated first-year cost of the program for city personnel, equipment, supplies, and travel, and to declare an emergency. This authorizes the Department of Public Service to appropriate the U.S. Department of Transportation funds for the estimated first-year cost of Smart Columbus. This does not cover the cost of contracts, but personal salaries, equipment, and travel. So this expenditure is spending grant dollars, not dollars from the public service budget. But before I move for passage, one piece of Smart Columbus that is especially important to me is that we are not using this money to contract just with out-of-town talent, but we're also encouraging Smart Columbus to develop and encourage local and diverse businesses here in the city. That way we can capitalize on both the implementation of Smart Columbus and innovation that comes from these local businesses. Director, would you outline again how Columbus is working with diverse local companies on Smart Columbus?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, President Klein, and other members of council. First, before I get to that, just want to say thank you for hearing this piece of legislation this evening. And then also during consent, there was a piece of legislation that you approved that was for over $500,000, which was for the next phase of communications. That contract is actually being led by a DBE here in Columbus, and so that is one of our major contracts. Also, I'd like to say that for the pieces of the communications that has already occurred, 100% of that money spent thus far has gone to disadvantaged business enterprises. And then as overall, as far as Smart Columbus goes, 21% of the resources spent thus far have gone to DBE firms here in the Columbus region. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I really appreciate your leadership and the work of the administration and folks around the city to make sure that we're making a commitment to small and minority and local folks who are doing great work. And like I said, this is an opportunity to modernize our city as it comes to infrastructure, but also to create new capacity for small businesses here in our city. Thank you so much for your leadership. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
That is all I have in my committees this evening. Thank you, President Klein.
Thank you, Chair. I believe it is 6:30. We do have non-agenda speakers as well as a couple other committees to go through. So if I can get a motion to adjourn, we'll take a momentary break and then proceed into zoning when the chair is ready. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Clerk, call the roll on motion to recess.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
We stand recessed. Regular meeting number 59 will now come to order. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Are there any communications and reports received by the city clerk?
No, there are not.
Any readings of first readings of 30-day legislation?
No, there are not.
We'll now go to the zoning committee. It's chaired by Councilmember Page. All members serve on that committee. Councilmember Page, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. Before beginning our zoning agenda, I'll briefly explain the rules of council as pertaining to speaking before council on zonings and variances. We permit 3 speakers on each side, 3 proponents and 3 opponents, and we ask that they limit their remarks to 3 minutes on each side, and we provide an opportunity for rebuttal from the applicant. On the advice of the City Attorney's Office, we ask that anyone here this evening who wishes to speak, either for or against any council variance, including staff, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. That would include anyone who has submitted a speaker slip. Okay. I swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Please answer, I will. I will. Thank you. You may be seated. Ordinance 1743-2016 to rezone 6125 Cleveland Avenue 43231, being .62 acres located at the southwest corner of Cleveland Avenue and Home Acre Drive from C5 Commercial District to LC4 Limited Commercial District. The applicant is Mohammed Alwazan, care of David Perry Agent. The proposed use is an automobile sales establishment. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Northland Community Council recommended disapproval. I would now like to ask for a staff presentation.
Good evening. The site consists of 2 parcels zoned in the C5 Commercial District, currently developed with a self-serve car wash facility. The requested LC4 Limited Commercial District would allow for the development of an automobile sales facility. The limitation text allows for C4 Commercial District uses with an accompanied list of prohibited uses. Development standards in the text address vehicle access, screening and landscaping along Cleveland Avenue and Home Acre Drive, lighting, outdoor display areas, prohibited activities, and graphics. The limitation text commits to a site plan and elevation drawings if the property is to be used for auto sales. The site is located within the planning area of the Northland 1 area plan, which recommends community commercial land uses at this location. The requested LC4 Limited Commercial District would allow redevelopment of the site along a commercial corridor with an automobile sales use while utilizing limitations and development standards consistent with the established zoning and development patterns of the area. In addition, parking lot landscaping and screening, which does not exist with the current development, has been incorporated into the proposed development. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Pine? Thank you. I would now like to ask for a presentation from the applicant or the applicant's agent. Thank you. Please come forward and state your name.
Yes, thank you. President Klein, Zoning Chair Page, and all council members. My name is Dave Perry. I'm the zoning consultant for this application. Staff has indicated what the proposal is. I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit, though. This site was developed with a car wash that is there today. It was developed in 1985. As far as car washes go, it might as well have been 1945, given what's happened with car washes. It's the type of car wash that is block construction, has a metal mansard roof, open bays, and floodlights. It hasn't been in operation for 6 years. It is heavily vandalized. A previous owner failed to take adequate precautions relative to plumbing freezing. There are underground water lines that are frozen. And we have looked at the building. The architect's estimate on cost to repair the building to operate it as a car wash is about $90,000 to $100,000. And all we will have left at that point is an outdated, non-functional car wash by today's standards. I know the council is familiar with other more recent car wash proposals where the industry has turned to the tunnel washes and much fancier buildings and site landscaping and services on site. This is from an age of very minimal car washes and design and so on. Let's look at the C5 zoning for just a second. The C5 zoning has very limited uses. It allows a car wash, which is what's there. It allows carryouts, such as beer and wine drive-throughs, allows drive-ins, fast food where it's exclusively served in automobiles, and a gas station. This site has no functional use under the current zoning. It is 0.6 acres located on a corner lot. So we have 2 building setbacks, we have a small parcel size anyway, and so I believe it essentially has no use under the current zoning other than remodeling the car wash, and that is not financially viable to do so because we end up with just an old car wash that's now operational. The site is wrapped by an L-shaped parcel to the west and south by an auto repair business. This site is limited in area to 0.6 acres. The Northland Plan recommends C4 uses for the property. It's on an arterial right-of-way. It's near the Cleveland I-270 interchange. It's near other large businesses in the area. It's an appropriate use for the site, and it remedies a considerable eyesore in the neighborhood. This project remedies a considerable eyesore in the neighborhood, we believe.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Perry, a question. How many people will be employed at this other establishment you're talking about?
The owner, who is here to speak tonight, and actually, I might ask him that question. I imagine there would be other sales and car prep people also.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Perry. Okay. I would now like to ask the owner, Mr. Mohammed Awazan, to come forward and make a brief statement.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Al-Wazan, and my address is 1374 Milk Street, Gahanna, Ohio. I purchased this property hoping that I can remodel the whole property and make it a better look for the community, and basically trying to have a nice lot on that side of the street. And I've been working this business for 15 years, and this is the first time for me that I'm purchasing this property, and I'm hoping from the city that will accept my request.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Awazan? President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you, Chair Page. So you said you've been in business for 15 years?
Yes, ma'am.
And you own, so where's, you have a automotive sales in another part of our city?
Well, I used to be on 161 prior to this property, yeah. Okay. I used to be.
So your business is no longer on 161?
No, it's not longer on 161.
Okay, so you no longer have an auto business? Or?
Well, I'm still doing wholesale at this time, hauling sell for dealers and businesses, but I'm patiently waiting for this property. That's why I have the chance to, rebuild my business.
These will be new, used cars that be sold here?
No, it's going to be used.
Used cars? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Councilmember Mitch Brown.
And the question I had, I posed earlier, was how many employees do you anticipate in this particular establishment?
5, 6 people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harden.
Thank you, Chair. Just how much money have you invested so far, and how much do you intend to do the renovations? The consultant talked about the amount of money it would take to bring it back to its current use as a car wash. How much do you intend to invest in this process?
As of right now, I own the property completely, and I'm thinking to spend between 70, 80,000 to bring it to life. And this is the first property for me, and I'm, it's building it for myself and for my community. So that's how much I'm thinking to spend. You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Alwazan.
Thank you.
We have another speaker speaking for this ordinance. Can Diab Elian come to the podium, please, and state any organizations that you may be representing, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi, my name Diab Elan. I own the property across the street from that car wash. I own it for almost 8 years. Since that time, that car wash doesn't open for 2 months. And all the time, because the closed property has been used for young guys to deal drugs there and all this. But if there is any business open there, I am sure there will be better corner for us.
Thank you. You have a little over 2 minutes. Do you have any additional comments?
Fine.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you.
I do not believe that we have any representatives from the Area Commission or the Northland Community Council. I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And if there are no further questions or comments, I would like to move for passage by a voice vote.
Ms. Brown?
You are correct, Mr. Reiner. We have one additional speaker, speaking against this ordinance. Mr. Reiner, if you can come up, and you have 3 minutes.
Walt Reiner, representing World Business Services Incorporated. We own the area that's across the street from this catty corner. And there we have the Atrium Center, which is a state-of-the-art center. It's got a tropical atrium. It has a Frank Lloyd Wright look with cantilevered areas and all glass. So it may be considered somewhat overbuilt for the area. The Northland Community Council was very excited about us building that several years ago. Now, we'd like to commend Mr. Alazon for his idea of investing in the area. Unlike the case that we had earlier where the 2,000 square foot Myers store left the area, Huntington Bank came in to take over the property and you're giving them a tax abatement. We're operating without any kind of abatements. So what we've created there to adjust to the new ethnicity in the neighborhood is a multi-ethnic center with a variety of tenants. And, we have restaurants, we've got ethnic barbershops of different stripes, we've got all kind of wonderful things. So we're not asking for like $15 million like Huntington Bank down the road, but we are here to protect our investment. We have tenants, we have customers. We sometimes advise people on what municipality to invest in. We have that type of business too. So we're not here to gore anybody's axe. We're very private enterprise, pro-private enterprise top operation. And we just would want to make sure that any kind of stipulations that were put in there by Northland Community Council on what this gentleman's going to do are held to and codified, because the Northland Group, of course, didn't want to see more car lots in the area. And so we're not here to gore anybody's ox, but we need to protect our multi-million-dollar investment across the street. So that's kind of our comment on this. So we'd want to make sure if you do vote for approval, that is very carefully stipulated that this zoning has all the things in there that it needs about the landscaping, the look of the building, and that sort of thing. So that's our position.
Thank you, Mr. Reiner. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you for coming down. And briefly before I move forward with the next motion, Shannon, if you could talk briefly about like the site plan that has been submitted and how the property owner will be required to comply with that site plan.
Absolutely. This color rendering is probably a good one to go with. If we go back to the existing aerials, you can see that there's no trees and no headlight screening installed right now. This applicant, although he's not required to, has agreed to install the parking lot landscaping and screening per code requirements, and they are committed to designing the site in this manner when it comes for the building permit for the change of use.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I would like to move for passage of this ordinance by voice vote.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Hardin? Yes. Page? Stinziano? Tyson?
Yes.
President Klein?
2825-2016, to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3309, 14A, height districts, 3312, 13B, driveway, 3312, 27.3, parking setback line, 3312, 49C, minimum number of parking spaces required, 3321, 05B, 12, vision clearance, 3333, 15C, basis of computing area, 3333-18, building lines, 3333-23 BD, minimum side yard permitted, 3333-24 rear yard, and 3333-26 height district of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 1124 North 4th Street, 43201, to permit multi-unit residential development with reduced development standards in the AR3 residential district, and to repeal ordinance number 1747-2016, passed July 11, 2016. The applicant is D'Amato 1 LLC. The proposed use is a multi-unit residential development. The city department's recommendation is approval. Italian Village Commission recommended approval. I would now like to ask for a staff presentation.
This ordinance is simply a correction ordinance from Ordinance 1747-2016, which was passed in July. It was realized actually during part of the site compliance review process that some of the building setback numbers were listed incorrectly, and it was just a type error. The setbacks that they are proposing are what was approved by the Italian Village Commission. So this ordinance is simply a replacement, and everybody is still recommending approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no questions or comments, I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
I now move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. I now have ordinance 2946-2016 to rezone 620 Georgesville Road, 43228, being .72 acres located at the southeast corner of Georgesville Road and Atlanta Drive from CPD Commercial Plan Development District to CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant is 620 Georgesville Road, LLC. The proposed use is to revise the CPD plan to allow a restaurant with a drive-through. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Greater Hilltop Area Commission recommended approval. I'd now like to ask for a staff presentation.
The The requested CPD Commercial Plan Development District replaces the current CPD plan to accommodate a new fast food establishment. The CPD text includes appropriate use restrictions and development standards, which will ensure compatibility with adjacent uses. The site is located within the planning area of the Greater Hilltop Plan Amendment, which recommends community commercial uses for this location. The proposal is consistent with the zoning and development patterns of the area. Therefore, the staff recommendation is for approval. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Is the applicant 620 Georgesville Road LLC present? Do you have any additional comments that you would like to make? Thank you. I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. I now move for passage.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Ordinance 2984-2016, to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3332.039 R4 Residential District, 3312-49C, minimum numbers of parking spaces required, 3332-05A4, Area District Lot Width Requirements, Section 3332-15 R4 Area District Requirements, 3332-19 fronting, 3332-25 maximum side yards required, 3332-26C1 minimum side yard permitted, 3332-27 rear yard, 3372-542 maximum lot coverage, and 3372-554 maximum floor area of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 360 West 6th Avenue, 43201. To permit a single-unit dwelling, a carriage house, on the rear of a lot developed with a single-unit dwelling with reduced development standards in the R4 residential district. The applicant is Donald A. Stinta. The proposed use is a carriage house on a lot developed with a single-unit dwelling. The City Department's recommendation is approval. University Area Commission recommended approval. I now ask for a staff presentation.
The site is zoned in the R4 residential district and is developed with a single-unit dwelling. The requested council variance will permit the construction of a single-unit dwelling above a garage on the rear of a lot while conforming the lot width and side yards of the existing single-unit dwelling. A council variance is necessary because the R4 district permits a maximum of 4 units in one building, but does not permit 2 residential buildings on the same lot. Variances for reduced required parking setbacks, lot width, area district requirements, fronting, maximum side yard required, minimum side yard, rear yard, and maximum lot coverage and floor area are also included in this request. The site is located within the planning area of the University District Plan, which recommends lower intensity residential uses for this location. Staff finds that the proposal is consistent with the plan's land use recommendation and will not add incompatible uses to the area. Additionally, staff notes that the proposal will improve the streetscape along the alley, will preserve an existing contributing structure, and supports a wider variety of housing opportunities that fits within the context of the established neighborhood. This request is consistent with the recent development pattern in historic urban neighborhoods. Therefore, our recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pine. Are there any questions? Is the applicant Donald Stinta present? Do you have any additional comments? Thank you. I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Ms. Brown? Mr. Brown? Yes. Harden? Yes. Page?
Yes.
Stinziano? Tyson?
Yes.
President Klein.
I now move for passage by voice.
Ms. Brown? Mr. Brown? Yes. Harden? Yes. Page? Yes. Stinziano? Tyson?
Yes.
President Klein.
Variance 3002-2016, to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 333302 AR12, ARLD, and AR1, apartment residential district use, 331249, minimum numbers of parking spaces required, 333309, area requirements, 333311, ARLD, area district requirements, 333318F, building lines, and 333323, minimum side yard permitted of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 951 Hunter Avenue, 43201, to permit single-unit residential development with reduced development standards in the ARLD apartment residential district. The applicant is Scott L. Hartley. The proposed use is a single-unit residential development. The city department's recommendation is approval. Italian Village Commission recommended approval. I now ask for a staff presentation.
The site is developed with a single-unit dwelling zoned in the ARLD Apartment Residential District. The requested council variance will permit a split of the property into 2 parcels, with a new single-unit dwelling being constructed on the vacant parcel. The ARLD Apartment Residential District allows single-unit dwellings, but only on lots established prior to January 14, 1959, or lots that were platted prior to July 16, 1986. The requested variance would permit development and lot sizes in character with the surrounding neighborhood. Variances include reduced parking, front and side yard setbacks, and lot width. Staff finds that the proposal will not add an incompatible use to the area, and the request is consistent with recent infill development proposals in historic urban neighborhoods. Therefore, our recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant Scott Hartley present? Do you have any additional comments? Thank you. I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And I now move for passage.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Variance 3003-2016 to rezone 1520 Candlelight Lane 43235, being 3.09 acres located on the south side of Candlelight Lane, 350 feet west of South Old State Road, from R Rural District to LM Limited Manufacturing District. The applicant is Brexton. The proposed use is a self-storage facility. The city department's recommendation is approval. Far North Columbus Communities Coalition recommended approval. I now ask for staff presentation.
The site is an undeveloped single parcel zoned in the R Rural District as a result of a recent annexation from Orange Township. The requested LM Limited Manufacturing District will allow a self-storage facility. The proposed limitation text contains use restrictions to permit C2 commercial district uses and less objectionable manufacturing uses, with provisions for customary accessory uses such as vehicle rental and sale of packing supplies. Also included in the text are commitments to a site plan and supplemental development standards for building height, setbacks, buffering, landscaping, building design, lighting, and graphics. The site is located within the boundaries of the Far North Area Plan, which recommends parks and open space for this location. However, the site is not held by the City of Columbus or any public agency. City staff supports other uses at this site that would be compatible with the adjacent residential and commercial uses, including the proposed self-storage facility, which has low traffic counts and minimal impact on adjacent properties. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval. I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? We do have one speaker speaking for this ordinance, who I believe is also a representative of the applicant, Brexton. Could Melanie Wallenberg come down to the podium? You have 3 minutes. If you could state your name again and any organizations you are representing. Thank you.
Thank you, members of council. I'm Melanie Wollenberg from Brexton, and happy to present this tonight. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Melanie. Are there any questions? Thank you so much for coming down.
Certainly.
Thank you. I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And I now move for passage.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Variance 3004-2016 to rezone 8931 South Old State Road 43235, being 4.54 acres located at the southeast corner of South Old State Road and Candlelight Lane, from R Rural District to CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant is again Brexton. The proposed use is a commercial shopping center. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Far North Columbus Communities Coalition recommended approval. I now ask for a staff presentation.
The site consists of a single parcel developed with a shopping center and zoned in the R Rural District as a result of a recent annexation from Orange Township. The applicant is requesting the CPD Commercial Plan Development District as a comparable request from the PC Planned Commercial and Office District from said Orange Township. The CPD text includes commitments to prohibit uses and proposes development standards that conform the existing site design as per the submitted site plan, with signage provisions for a joint complex tenant panel. The site is located within the boundaries of the Far North Area Plan, which recommends community commercial for this location. Staff has determined that the requested CPD Commercial Plan Development District is comparable to the township zoning, is necessary to limit potential uses while conforming the existing shopping center, and is compatible with the surrounding development patterns. Therefore, our recommendation is for approval, and I'd welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
I now move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Variance 3007-2016, to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 333302, AR12, ARLD, and AR1, apartment residential district use, 331249, minimum numbers of parking spaces required, 332101, dumpster area, 332105B2, vision clearance, 333309, area requirements, 333311, ARLD, area district requirements, 333315C, basis of computing area, 333318D, building lines, 333323, minimum side yard permitted, and 333324, rear yard of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 1485 Oak Street, 43205, to permit a mixed-use development with reduced development standards in the ARLD apartment residential district. The applicant is Matt Lutz. The proposed use is a mixed-use development. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Near East Area Commission recommended approval. Now ask for a staff presentation.
The site is developed with a vacant two-story building zoned in the ARLD apartment residential district. The requested council variance will permit a first-floor eating and drinking establishment with offices and/or residential units on the second floor. The request also includes variances to parking requirements and dumpster areas, and conforms the existing site conditions for vision clearance, lot width, lot size, lot coverage, setbacks, and yard standards. The site is located within the planning area of the Near East Area Plan, which contains a series of criteria that can be used to determine if proposed commercial uses should be supported within residential areas. Key factors include whether the structure has a history of commercial activity and parking considerations. The request can be supported because the proposal includes a renovated mixed-use building, brings desirable businesses to this area, and is located in a dense pedestrian-oriented neighborhood. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is the applicant Matt Lutz present? Do you have any additional comments? If you could come down to the podium. Thank you for coming down, Mr. Lutz, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Matt Lutz. We run a small family business here, owning quite a few properties right around this restaurant building. This building's been vacant for 25 years, and so we're asking your permission today to renovate the building, to put in a restaurant. We think the life and the vibrancy that this will bring to this corner is critical for this end of, it's Franklin Park, kind of the far west end of, or the far east end of Old Town East. So I live a block away. We need businesses like this that we can walk to. We're starved on this end of the neighborhood for restaurants and similar small businesses. And so we want something in here that is like Yellow Brick or Tavern down the street. Kind of what we've envisioned. We've asked for your permission to possibly put office on the second floor, just simply because the neighborhood is so starved for commercial space. If that doesn't work out, then we'll go ahead and rent those as apartments. So those are my comments, and we respectfully ask for your approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for the applicant?
Question, Mr. Lutz.
Councilmember Mitchell Brown.
Thank you. What's the menu?
Don't know yet. We're in a place where we and all of our neighbors can go and maybe get a burger and a beer, hang out in a neighborhood establishment to get dinner.
Do you have any experience in the restaurant business?
No, I don't intend to be the restaurateur.
Okay.
I intend to just be the landlord and recruit a restaurateur for the space.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming down. I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Second.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And I now move for passage.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Variance 3012-2016 to rezone 1770 West Henderson Road 43220, being .84 acres located at the northeast corner of West Henderson and Reed Roads from CPD Commercial Plan Development District to CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant is AutoZone Development LLC. The proposed use is an automobile parts retail store. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Northwest Civic Association recommended approval. I now ask for a staff presentation.
The site consists of 2 parcels zoned in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District, developed with a vacant gas station. The site is also within the Community Commercial Overlay. The requested CPD Commercial Plan Development District will allow redevelopment of the site with an automobile parts retail store in accordance with the submitted site plan and building elevations. The CPD text permits only the proposed retail auto parts store, commits to Community Commercial Overlay graphics requirements, and provides access and circulation restrictions requested by the Department of Public Service. The proposal also provides for variances to the setback, building design, and parking and circulation requirements of the Community Commercial Overlay. Those variances are supported because they provide for better site design by placing the building in a manner that orients the entrance and parking and circulation areas away from the adjacent residential uses. While the Northwest Plan does not provide specific land use recommendations for this site, the updated plan that is, I think was just adopted this evening, does recommend commercial development at this location. The proposed CPD district will permit redevelopment of this vacant gas station site with a new retail use that provides appropriate development standards in consideration of adjacent residential uses. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant AutoZone Development LLC present? Do you have any additional comments? Thank you. If there are no questions or comments for Councilmember Harden.
Thank you, Chair Page. I just want to acknowledge the applicant. I had the opportunity to be out at the area commission when he presented on this, and they were so appreciative of the time that you took and put into making this part of the community. And I saw firsthand you working with them. And it's really how zoning is supposed to work. I really appreciate that and look forward to this property moving forward.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Harden. I would first like to move to waive second reading.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
I now move for passage.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Our final variance this evening is 3023-2016 to rezone 975 North High Street 43215, being 1.08 acres located at the northwest corner of North High Street and West 2nd Avenue from C4 Commercial District to CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant is Connie J. Klima. The proposed use is a mixed-use development. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Victorian Village Commission recommended approval. I now like to ask for staff presentation.
The site is zoned in the C4 Commercial District and had been developed with a surface parking lot and fast food establishment that was recently demolished. The site is subject to Board of Zoning Adjustment Application BZA 16-036, which granted variances for increased building height, reduced minimum number of parking, stacking, and loading spaces, increased light pole height, and reduced building setbacks for an 8-story mixed-use building containing about 3,500 square feet of restaurant space with an enclosed pickup unit, 8,400 square feet of retail space, and a little over 11,000 square feet of office space, and 105 apartment units above with a 210 garage parking space. The requested CPD Commercial Plan Development District will accommodate the approved variances for the mixed-use building with an allowance to one C5 commercial district use for public electric vehicle charging stations and a commitment that one parking space will be provided for each residential unit. This CPD district does not alter the planned development of the property that was approved by the Board of Zoning Adjustment, but does propose the one C5 public electric vehicle charging station use, eliminates the height variance with the requested height district of 110 feet, and allows for future lot splits that could divide parking spaces and drive aisles within the building. All other aspects of the proposed development remain unchanged. It will also be adding a 105-space public parking garage, which is a net increase in the amount of on-site parking from the former 42-space surface lot that existed on the property. And while the proposed building height is slightly taller than recently approved mixed-use buildings in the Short North, it will match the character of this rapidly developing urban area. And that is why staff's recommendation is for approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? Councilmember Stinziano.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. We received some emails since this is a project that's been up before, and just wanted to hope if you could clarify. One of the questions that was asked is the point of this rezoning is unclear, and so is the effect of it. I know you highlighted some of the changes. Can you explain what the point of this rezoning is compared to what we approved before?
You mean what the Board of Zoning approved before? There really is no change except for the one C5 use, the electrical charging station. Fueling stations are considered C5 commercial uses. The CPD district allows both C4 and C5 uses, but in the C4 district itself, you would not be able to have that electric charging station use within a building. So that is one of the reasons why this CPD is going forward. Codifying the height district as opposed to relying on the variance itself. I think this was something that the applicant wanted to do, and I'm sure the applicant's representative can explain the reasons why they're pursuing the rezoning. It's not a requirement of the city that they pursue this rezoning. It was a choice of the applicant. Then finally, the last aspect of this CPD district that is not permitted in the current C4 or by the variance was to, at times, there might be a lot split that runs through a building, and we standardly grant variances to a parking space size because it's being split by a parcel line, or they might have to maneuver over that property line. Those are just technical variances. It's not going to change the number of parking spaces required for this development or allotted to any particular use.
Yes. Follow up. Thanks, Madam Chair. So, and based on your presentation, you do not view that a potential purpose of this rezoning would be to avoid any restrictions that the current approved architectural plan places on the project?
That is correct. They've already come in and submitted their plans for approval. They've already gotten the Victorian Village Commission certificate of approval to build the building as depicted on the slide. None of those have changed from what was approved by the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
And last question. Thank you, Madam Chair. So then to clarify again, it's your and the staff's opinion that this rezoning is not in direct contradiction to the obligations that the developer has already made, that this zoning application was made in conformance with requirements of the zoning code.
That is correct.
Thank you, Councilmember Stinziano. Are there any additional questions or comments? I would now like to ask the applicant to come down and to make a statement. Ms. Clement, if you could also talk to why you're requesting that this variance be amended to an emergency.
Certainly, thank you. President Klein, council members, I'm Connie Klima. I represent the owners of this property. I have nothing really to add. I think Shannon has explained it very well, why we are going through the CPD process, even though the zoning is not required for the development of this project. We have asked for an emergency. Council did prior in this year, approve an economic development agreement for this project. We have been actually developing this site. Construction is ongoing. This particular type of CPD zoning will allow us for necessary financing and ownership options of this project. So it's not really a zoning-specific request. It's basically because of timing, and the process of this project is already underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, Councilmember Elizabeth Brown?
Yes.
I appreciated Ms. Pine's description, and it was very helpful, but I really would like to hear from the applicant why, this was a long process, and obviously, we've considered this development at this body before. Why was this rezoning considered now? I really want to hear kind of from the applicant on why that is, because I know the neighbors have contacted us with.
Certainly, I'd be happy to explain it. When you get into financing different projects and going through the process of different types of ownerships, it's something that we, in hindsight, probably would have gone through for a rezoning from the very beginning. We're understanding now that financing purposes, a zoning more than variances, being a deviation from zoning, is a much stronger way of getting financing, and it basically provides more options when you come to lenders, that type of thing. And in addition to that, because a building of this type will probably at some point have different owners or different people participating in its ownership, this, as Shannon described, will allow division of that property by parcel without having come back before this body or the BZA to get variances, because we will not have the proper setbacks, for instance, because they would be within the building. They are, in fact, a way of dividing the building, almost like a condominium type thing, without having to go through the zoning process again.
Okay. And the options you're referring to that this gives you is in the lending process.
It's in the lending process and not in the structural or design process at all.
Okay. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Are there any further questions or comments? Thank you. We do have 4 speaker slips that are speaking against this ordinance. However, we only permit 3. And I will begin with Mr. Bill Wood. Well, thank you. We will now move on to Ms. Joyce Martin. You can come down and you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and any organizations that you are representing.
President Klein, Chairman Page, and council members. My name is Joyce Martin, and I'm not representing an organization, but many of the neighbors in the area certainly are concerned about this property. I'd like you to think about postponing or tabling this particular request. There is no urgency. There's not a change in ownership happening right now. There's no emergency happening. Once you vote on it, you will be giving a very, very broad CPD zoning to these folks, and it needs more time, it needs more understanding of what this entails. One of the problems is that there is no area plan for Victorian Village. There is no area commission for Victorian Village. The group that this went through is a design review group. They do architectural things. They look at windows, they look at roofs, but they are not a zoning or an area commission. So the reliance of the development committee, the reliance of BZA on what they decided is not well placed. At the particular meeting where this was discussed, the chair looked around at his fellow commission members and said, does anybody understand what this CPD stuff is? And none of them stepped up to the plate. The applicant's attorney explained it again to him. It's not just that, like the far northwest people who were here earlier for Councilmember Brown, it's not just that we have an outdated plan like those folks did. We have no plan, and we have never had a plan. When I talked to them earlier, they said, it's so nice when a proposal comes before us because we have something to set it up against. And we look at our plan, and we look at the proposal, and we say, fits or doesn't fit. We don't have that. So the far northwest side is a lot better off than Victorian Village, which is adjacent to downtown. to Short North, to the university, to Italian Village. We are an important area for development. You heard people say that, but no plan, no guidance. Everything is made by the seat of your pants. This is ridiculous. If there is no area plan and you decide to rezone, what are you making that decision on the basis of? You have no basis for or against because there's no plan. If you make the decision, it seems very much to be arbitrary and capricious on your part. And you want to be very, very worried about arbitrary and capricious. Again, the timing, why now? The vagueness of the application. The council members have had trouble understanding why it needs to happen. It's because it's vague. It just says it's going to be like the old one. Oh yeah, but we won't have to come back for variances. This is a serious problem. And again, if you're going to approve this even tentatively, you need to have several conditions in it. Councilmember Stinziano's last words would be good to have incorporated into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Are there any questions or comments for her? Our next speaker is Lisa Wood. Please state your name and any organizations that you are representing, and you also have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Lisa Wood, representing myself. I don't want to be redundant, but I think the application should be tabled as well, or at least have a second reading. If you have had a chance to listen to the transcript, it was clear that none of the commissioners of the Victorian Village Commission understood what the vote was about, and there was also confusion at the Development Commission as well. This project doesn't need flexibility. It needs accountability. We need the dump trucks, the cement trucks to honor the 25-mile-an-hour zone. I really don't want to wake up at sunrise for the next 2 years because the trucks that park in front of our homes didn't come with mufflers, but they came with radios. I don't appreciate the construction workers feeling free to have their picnic lunches on our tree lawns. I also don't understand why the numbers on this application as far as residential units and parking spaces are different than the original variance request and different from the EDA. With all the other development we know is coming to the area, I think this is going to open a can of worms, and the Victorian Village Commission is going to lose control. Every part of this process has been a bitter disappointment. At no point is anyone given any consideration for the long-term owners, while the developers have been given anything they've asked for. I want some accountability. The way this development is treating Second Avenue is nothing short of criminal.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. You have about an additional minute.
I'm done.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming down. Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Wood? Thank you so much. I would now like to ask our final speaker, Mr. Richard Jacob, to come down. Again, please let us know any organizations that you are representing, and you have 3 minutes.
President Klein, council members, my name is Richard Jacob. I'm a resident of the area. I'm also a member of an organization called Save the Short North. We're 334 members, and we object to this proposal being presented to you today. If you look back at the history of this project, and you look back at the newspaper accounts when it was first announced, the developer said, quite proudly, this is going to be the corner that never sleeps. That's what they wanted for the Short North. And this is a residential street. And I can see it. It's 3 doors down from my house. Giving it a CPD approval today says the developer can do whatever they want. They do not have to come back to you or to the Board of Zoning or to the Victorian Village Commission to ask for variances. They can do whatever they want. and you're going to allow the corner that never sleeps to become a reality. Now, there are attachments that should be on their application. Use studies, environmental impact studies, traffic studies. It's all supposed to be attached to this. None of it is. We can't review it. It doesn't exist. Did you review it? Do you know what you're approving? That becomes the question. So as an organization, we're asking you to do one thing. Do not allow, at this instant, the corner that never sleeps to become a reality. Make the developer and the applicant come forward with the documents that restrict them from doing whatever they want in this development. Because the way it stands now, if you approve this, they can do whatever they want. They're saying they won't, but their history has said whatever they say they won't do something, they do it. It's not someone that we trust. And as a resident, one of the 334 members of our group, which we will happily bring down here next time if you like, to have a pandemonium here, we've tried to not do that. We're asking you to give this another consideration, a second reading, and require the developer to provide all the attachments that we can all look at and hold them to accountably in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Jacob, are there any questions or comments for him? I would now like to ask the applicant to come down. You have 3 minutes for a rebuttal.
I have no additional comments unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you. President Pro Tem Tyson.
Yes, I have a question just based upon their last comments. I mean, again, when I think you were here before, you said there were no changes from the previous legislation. Is that correct?
Yes, I can explain that. I didn't know if I would need to, but I'd be happy to. The BZA variances that we have permit us to build the building as it's being built. This will not change that at all. We are not asking for anything additional that wasn't already approved. If anything, this CPD actually restricts us more than the BZA variances. The BZA variances were not tied to a specific plan. They were not approved on the condition that we build this building. They were just approved. This CPD text requires us to build the building that the commission approved. It ties that building to this zoning. In addition, it basically has reduced the restrictions that our variances permitted. When we got our variances, we actually had asked for additional variances that aren't needed with this particular CPD. We have restricted ourselves more. So that is basically in the text, and that's why we have no real comment. The project as it's being built, as it was being approved, could continue on without this CPD. This is for the purposes that I expressed.
Councilmember Harden.
Thank you, Chair Page. The gentleman that spoke before asked the question about supporting documents, studies or such. Are those required? Obviously, they're not required to move forward, but are those sorts of things, were those accompanied to the first zoning that we passed earlier?
This project we worked on for a long time now. We have gone and before with the city. We've done traffic studies. We've done all studies required by the city, and gone through all the variations of making changes to this project that would accommodate the city's approvals. And that's where we landed with the BZA variances. That's why we were allowed to begin construction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Elizabeth Brown.
Mr. Jacob remarked on the fact that this means the applicant can do, and I don't know if this is maybe you answer or Ms. Pine answers, but that the applicant can do whatever, essentially whatever you want on this site. And I understand from a neighbor's perspective how that would be very alarming. But what I'm hearing you say, and actually it'd be great if Ms. Pine could, as a as a disinterested party, could kind of affirm this better, because there really is a fear that this means anything goes. And could we get a little more, I'm sorry, Ms. Klima, I'm going to redirect it to Ms. Pine. Could we get a little more, if that's okay with you, Chair Page, a little more explanation there?
Absolutely. The current C4 district is not tied to a site plan, does not have a development text. They, in my opinion, or actually it's factual, that the current district could allow this applicant to totally change the proposed building and build something else, as long as the Victorian Village Commission approved it. And if they needed any variances, they'd have to get them approved through either council or the Board of Zoning. This CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, is very site-specific. They can only build this building in accordance with this site plan, in accordance with the CPD text that is within the ordinance itself.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you, Ms. Klima. And Shannon, could you talk briefly, if the applicant does go outside of what could possibly be approved this evening, how is the CPD district and the site plan enforced?
During the site compliance review process, if the site does not match the CPD plan, they will not get their approval that they need to develop. If it is discovered during inspections or after the building is constructed that there is a non-compliance issue, then it would be routed to code enforcement for possible violations. If a new developer 10 years from now wanted to perhaps add more restaurant space, for example, they would have to rezone it, because this ordinance is tied to specific square footage requirements of commercial uses. Same would go if they wanted to increase the number of residential units or increase any of the other spaces for commercial uses. The only thing that could happen that the CPD would allow is if they were actually reducing space that would require less parking spaces, but they'd still be required to provide the same amount of parking spaces that they committed to.
Thank you. And I have one additional question. One of the speakers spoke about their area lacking an area plan. And could you talk about how staff kind of reviews any applications for development when a neighborhood doesn't have an area plan?
Absolutely. We look at surrounding land uses, other zoning proposals that were similar in the area. We also rely on the input from the Planning Division. In this case, the Planning Division relies on the input from the Victorian Village Commission. They do have their guidelines, and they do have to make recommendations on rezoning and council variance proposals. That's what we do in this instance when there is no area plan.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions or comments? Well, seeing none, I would first like to move to amend this ordinance to emergency.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And I would now like to move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, President Klein. That's all we have in zoning this evening.
Thank you, Chair Page. Any other comments from the Zoning Committee? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn meeting 59? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Regular meeting number 59 is now adjourned. We will reconvene regular meeting number 58 shortly. Can I get a motion to reconvene regular meeting number 58? Is there a second? Second. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
We reconvene regular meeting number 58. We left off the Recreation and Parks Committee. Councilmember Page chairs that committee. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. In Recreation and Parks, we have ordinance 2872-2016. And the purpose of this ordinance is to allow the Scioto Mouth Fountain to be serviced. It needs some current improvements. Additionally, this will authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into contract with Media Nation, Inc. to make those required improvements. I would like to ask the Director to speak briefly to why we are waiving the competitive bidding provisions.
Thank you, Council Chair Page, President Klein, all members of Council. Yes, this is for a contract with Media Nation, which is the original install firm for the fountain. And so the software and the technology is proprietary. So we want to stick with them so that we can be, utilize the dollars the best and have the best product.
Thank you, Director. In addition to waiving those competitive bidding provisions, additionally, this ordinance requests that we authorize the expenditure of $110,000 from the Recreation and Parks Bond Fund 7702 and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, President Klein. If I may move to the Housing Committee. Thank you. We have Ordinance 3030-2016, which this will authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into contract with various contractors for the demolition work that we do across our city with the VAT program, which is the Vacant and Abandoned Properties Initiative. This has been going on across our city for a few years now, and the department has been very successful in demolishing nuisance properties across our city. This ordinance is requesting that the competitive bidding provisions of City Code Chapter 329 be waived for the emergency demolitions, and also to authorize the expenditure of $1,500,000 from the Development Taxable Bonds Fund. I would now like to ask the Director to make any additional comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair, President Klein, members of Council. As you alluded to, we are asking for waiver of competitive bidding to allow us to move very quickly when we have structures that are deemed unsafe by our friends at the Department of Building and Zoning Services. So thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you, Director. I do have one question. Would this ordinance include any court-ordered demolitions as well?
Yes, this also includes our court-ordered demos. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Chair, do you have a speaker slip on this piece of legislation?
You are so right. Thank you so much, President Klein. We have Mr. Nathaniel George Wilkins, if you could come down. He is speaking against this ordinance. And Mr. Wilkins, you have 3 minutes.
Ugh. 1612 Arlington Avenue, Mr. Nathaniel George Wilkins, the chairman of Solely Vacant Property and Lapidated Homes. Once again, I'm just baffled. It's because we are just losing the history in the state of Ohio with all these homes. And it doesn't give people a chance to really look what we have. I know we talked about demolition, but again, we are losing the history of vacant homes all through the state of Ohio. It's unfortunately that none of these homes is not set the price to be sold for dirt cheap prices of these homes. You know, as I stay here multiple times, it breaks my heart just to see an age-old house go. You know, it's unfortunately like 3 years ago, we lost 1638 of Genesee Avenue. And what a shame that we are fastly moving on demolition. You know, when we look at our communities, they won't be the same again. You know, architect and design of demolition homes will not be the same again. You know, it's unfortunately that we lost 1603 of Myrtle Avenue with the sod brick and stone. You know, we won't find houses like that again in North Linden or South Linden area again. So again, let's use the money to idolize, reinvest in some of these homes again where they can be beautified again and have tinted up in them. You know, when you lose a home, that takes away the culture of the neighborhood. So again, I'm really not for demolition no more, you know, after what I've seen, you know, all through the state of Ohio. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your comments, Mr. Wilkins. Are there any additional questions or comments from President Pro Tem Tyson?
Thank you, Chairwoman Page. Director, in regards to just the contracts, so are the contracts going to, with this $1.5 million, are you writing the contracts just out of development? Or do you have companies already, I mean, are there already companies who you're already working with to get these contracts? Can you talk about that, please?
President Pro Tem, thank you for the question. We go through a process every year of searching for additional vendors for our demolition contracts. So we do use private contractors. If there are any private businesses that are in the demolition business, we do encourage you to reach out both to our land redevelopment office as well as the county's land bank, the Central Ohio Community Improvement Corporation, because there are a number of projects going on and we're always looking for new contractors. Did I answer your question or am I missing your question?
I think that you've answered if individuals want to get involved with the Department of Development and to get contracts. I guess the question is just, oftentimes when we're having legislation like this, like 1.5 million, and then we would have subsequent legislation that are going to those different, whoever the contractors are. So that's one. Or is it that you have a list and then based upon we're waiving competitive bidding on this, that you will just determine who the contractors are going to be and then go ahead and write the contracts and do business with that organization to be able to demolish your property?
Okay, I understand your question better. Thank you. I'm going to give you an answer, and I may be incorrect, and if we are incorrect, I will come back to you with the correction at a later time. This is authorization for monies that we do not have the specific list of contractors approved at this time. Likely it will be drawn from the contractors that we use. As you know, we have multiple demolition contracts, but we do not have them specified in this legislation at this time.
The only reason I was asking that is because when you don't have that, if there were ever any time where we're having any, where we would have to abstain for any of who was getting those contracts. And so I just wanted to get clarification.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I now move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And President Klein, if I may move to the Rules and Reference Committee, I do have one ordinance there. Thank you. Ordinance 2797-2016 is to amend Section 336301 of the Columbus Zoning Code, Title 33, to prohibit extended stay hotels in the M Manufacturing Zoning District. And I would like to ask the Director to speak briefly. We did have a public hearing on this zoning change, and it came from, residents asking us to kind of close that loophole where we were seeing extended stay hotels being permitted in manufacturing districts. So I'd like to ask you to speak briefly about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Page. Yes, we did have both a public hearing as well as extensive outreach to stakeholders. Development Commission also reviews code changes. Extended stay hotels are very unique developments in that they're proper in commercial zoning districts, but often have residential characteristics more consistent with apartments. Our current zoning code allows commercial development in manufacturing districts as well, but generally prohibits residential use. So this code change was necessary to clarify that due to the residential nature of these extended stay hotels, they would not be permitted in the manufacturing district.
Thank you. Councilmember Stinziano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Director, appreciated the hearing and the work on the legislation. Just a quick question. Did anyone raise any opposition or raise any issues with the proposed language? I was not aware of any. I heard some concerns, but no one ever formally opposed or came out against. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, there was no substantial or official objection. We did have some conversation around existing proposed extended stay developments. And so the legislation does go further to address the issue of allowing existing developments that have substantially already moved forward to be essentially grandfathered. So there was some conversation about, whether that should be permitted or not, but due to, vested property rights and vested time that has been spent, we struck a balance that we think was appropriate in this situation.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Councilmember Stinziano. If there are no further questions or comments, I would like to move for passage of this code change.
Second.
Yes, I need to slow down. I would first like to move to request to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. Now I move for passage as amended.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And that is all I have this evening, President Klein. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Page. The next committee is the Technology Committee. It's chaired by Councilmember Stinziano. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, President Klein. Tonight in the Technology Committee, I bring Ordinance 2921-2016 to appropriate $1,334,838.84 within the Special Income Tax Fund to authorize the Director of Finance and Management on behalf of the Department of Technology to establish a contract purchase order for the third and final year of a 3-year term agreement for Microsoft Enterprise Software licensing from Dell Marketing LP from a state term schedule to authorize a modification to the agreement for the second year true-up to authorize the expenditure of $1,334,838.84 or so much thereof as may be necessary from the Special Income Tax Fund for the Department of Technology and to declare an emergency. This ordinance will enable the city to cost-effectively obtain the latest versions of Microsoft software utilizing a single agreement for the entire city. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And all I have left is public utilities, if I can move to that committee. Thank you, President Klein. I bring forward Ordinance 2767-2016 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with Underground Utilities Incorporated for the Shattuck Avenue Area Waterline Improvements Project, to authorize the appropriation and transfer of $3,495,392.23 from the Water Systems Reserve Fund to the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account Fund, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $3,495,392.23 within the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account Fund for the Division of Water, and to amend the 2016 capital improvements budget. The purpose of this project is to construct necessary improvements to the water distribution system in the Shattuck Avenue area south of Henderson Road between Upper Arlington and State Route 315. The improvements identified in the scope of work will replace water lines that have high break histories and require frequent maintenance. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And finally, bring forward Ordinance 2904-2016 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with George J. Igo and Company, Incorporated for the Southerly Wastewater Treatment Plant site preparation and improvements, to authorize appropriation and transfer of $4,879,400 from the Sanitary Sewer Reserve Fund to the Ohio Development Water Authority Loan Fund, to authorize the expenditure of said funds and declare an emergency. This project must be completed in advance of the chemically enhanced primary treatment projects, which are scheduled to be awarded in the second quarter of 2017 and are tied to a completion date as identified in the Wet Weather Management Plan Agreement with the Ohio EPA. This project will complete activities critical to the success of the aforementioned forthcoming projects. The work will include clearing, earthwork and hauling, roadway installation, building construction, other site utilities, and improvements. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Second.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And that's all I have tonight. Thank you, President Klein.
Thank you, Councilmember Stinziano. Any other business to come before council this evening? We do have 5 non-agenda speakers that we'll take once we convene. Can I get a motion to, once we adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
We stand adjourned, and we will take non-agenda speakers shortly.